first one, what do you project Alabama to be next season with the additions of Gibbs and Eli Ricks and some of the other transfers that Alabama's got in, along with the recruiting class? I think our roster just got significantly upgraded with those transfers and with that recruiting class. I think we have a lot better chance of being a lot more consistent on defense, and you already know what we bring back on offense.
Yeah, so we did some position previews for the spring last week for Alabama. We're going to touch on the defense this week. All right. So these additions are tremendous, talking about Ricks and Gibbs. I'm a big believer in both of those guys. I think they're tremendous talents and will be a great addition. You know, for the first time since, you could probably fill in the blank better than me, last season it was all on Brian Robinson to produce. There's usually that 1-2 punch. There's, Stacy and Yeldon. There's, you could go through the years. Obviously, ever since 2008, there's been a 1-2 punch, and there really wasn't last year. So it appears as though that they will have that type of setup this year. My main concerns with this team, and when I say that they're concerns, they're really not concerns, because I know how well stacked they are at these positions and how good the coaching is. But there's a lot coming back and a lot of experience along the offensive line, but they didn't play well. Would you agree, the worst offensive line performance for an entire season that Alabama has shown under Nick Saban? I do.
Yeah, I think so. But there was enough there to give me hope for next year. Like, they showed enough at times to where I went, okay, next season I can see them being drastically improved, because we did see them improve, especially at the tail end of the season, from week to week. They really did. And so I think Tyler Booker is a guy that's coming in as an offensive lineman, and I think he has a really good chance to be, if not a starter, to be right in the mix with those guys. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah. So Evan Neal's gone. Emil Ekiyor decided to come back. So they have a ton of experience coming back, and of course, there's never concern about the talent. So that's my one thought, is that the offensive line had its worst year under Saban, and we'll see if they can rebound. Number two would be the receiver core, and again, I'm not that concerned, because there's just too many 4- and 5-star guys for them not to find 3 to 4 that can consistently make plays. But they really let down that team in the national championship game. Now they're going to have another season, another off season under their belts when they get put into that position again. But between Hall and Brooks, there were some huge drops, and just not there was a noticeable difference. Obviously, I don't want to take away from Georgia's national championship, but if Mechie and Williams play, I'm not going to say that Alabama would have won for sure, but I'm just saying the drop off was stark, noticeable, decided, substantial when those guys were not on the field.
Yeah, and the guy you got to watch out for too coming in this season, I think, on the offensive side of the ball, who I think is going to probably will start as a freshman, and that's Shaz Preston. I looked at this guy's film, and I know some people that are very well connected up there, and the Bama staff really, really likes him. Some of the coaching staff has compared him to Julio when he was a freshman. And so that's how much they like this guy.
Nice. Anything else, Hunter?
I'm sorry, you break. Yeah, one more thing. As far as I think you and Joel Klatt have persuaded me on this. And that's the playoff expansion. My concern is with it is this. Um, my concern is one. I don't want to diminish. I think we've already done that to an extent, but I don't want us to diminish the bowl games. And I just don't. I think that 16 teams is too many, and I think I'm more comfortable with 12 teams, and I think 18 is not enough. Uh, but I do think there needs to be an expansion. I just don't know. I don't think there's any perfect scenario in which this can play out to where it's going to be perfect. I don't think any system like that is going to be perfect. But um, I I do think there's time for expansion now. I just don't know what the formula is.
So, number one, you're right, Hunter. There is no perfect system, not even mine. So, I've never promoted mine to be perfect. The thing is when the committee announced and made public its proposal last summer, if there would have been a way to, and mathematically it's impossible, but to have a 12-team playoff without any buys, I would have been completely in love with their proposal. I liked everything else. I liked awarding conference champions the first four spots because then you reward the conference championship games. So you wouldn't have a situation in which Georgia shows up as number one, undefeated, consensus number one. They lose an SEC championship game and they're like, oh, well, no big deal. We're going to be number two or number three. Nope. You go to the back of the line. You got to win your conference to be a top seed. I do also think that 12-team playoff proposal would work with home games in the first round because, again, you would give more weight to the regular season conclusion and the conference championship games because you would not have teams that would be so dominant that they could blow a game, not intentionally, but not focus on a game or do what happens in the NFL where teams throw games away late in the season because their playoff position secure and they really can't do anything. So there's no reason to play their starters. We want to take away that possibility. And I think he would do that with first round playoff games at home. And also then again, the conference championship games, I think were highlighted by this proposal. And then also forcing Notre Dame to either join a conference or be relegated to always having to play a first round game. I liked everything with it, except for because of the math, 12 teams forces you into bye games, bye weeks for particular teams. And I don't agree with that. And I think I've gone on record here a number of ways of explaining why the buys, in my opinion, don't work in college football. And I will explain that to a new batch of people at some point. But I know that you've heard my rant on that.
Yes, and one more quick thing I want to ask you about. Alabama and Texas home series coming up the next 2 years.
Yeah.
With Texas having Sark there now, and recruiting at the level that he is, even in his first year, I'm pretty excited about this. So
you should be excited.
In your opinion, is that? Do you think that that's the direction that Alabama should go? I agree with you. I listened to some of your stuff on the scheduling. I don't think we should be playing two cupcakes again. I really don't. I think we should be playing teams, more ACC teams, or a big or team like Michigan for a regular season game or something like that. I don't think that we should be doing that. But this is the direction that I would like to see the scheduling go. Is to play a good team from a different conference every year. The feeling that I'm okay with one cupcake, but you can't have two every year. So I think this home series is going to be good. And I'm excited. We play at Texas this year, don't we? Yeah, we play
Yes.
at Texas this year, and then next
Yes.
year it's going to be September the 10th. So I'm excited. Like we got the week before that, we got Utah State. Why in the world are we playing Utah State? Like really? I mean, that just doesn't. And then later on in the year, we play Austin Peay. I mean, couldn't we take that Austin Peay game and fill it in with like a Notre Dame or a Florida State or even a Boston College, something that's more competition than a team like that. So I agree with people that have that grievance with the way that the SEC schedules their games.
So here's my deal on the schedule is that if there's going to be 4 non-conference games, I would like there to be the one cupcake game is fine. These guys shouldn't have to play, Georgia or Texas A&M every week. So the one cupcake's fine. And then the other 3 games, I believe, should be non-conference games, and they don't have to be killers. So if you're Alabama, I don't think that they necessarily need to be playing Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson. I don't believe in a killer schedule, but I believe in a balanced schedule, and I've laid this out, that is a composite 500 schedule from the previous season. So Alabama would be playing 3 Power 5 teams, but they would be of all shapes and sizes. I think we get caught up in wanting to see all the powerhouses play, and of course we do. But there's no reason to beat up Alabama and Ohio State because they are who they are. They should play tough teams out of conference, but within reason. My schedule would look for Alabama would look something like the Tennessee-Chattanooga game at some point, and then the other 3 games would look something like Oklahoma, Purdue, and Tulsa, or something like that. I don't know. That might be a bad example, but I've laid it all out that I just think that these schedules should be equitable.
Well, what they need to do, Mark, is they need to hire you for the NCAA to come and do the scheduling for all the teams. I think what you just laid out is perfect.
Well, that would be nice. I would be all for it because I've laid this out years and years ago that I don't believe in hammering Alabama because they're Alabama and having them have to play all these ridiculous games or taking it easy on Vandy because they're Vandy and saying, oh, we don't care. Vandy can play Middle Tennessee and Connecticut and whomever. I think the schedule should be equitable so we can fairly evaluate all these teams. That's what I believe.
Yeah, or you made the scenario like Purdue or a Cincinnati or some team like that that's decent in their conference the year before, and then have that game to where there's at least some sort of a test. And I'm not just saying this for Alabama. I mean this across the board.
Sure.
So I think you heading in the right direction.
What I'll say about your series with Texas is I hope once we watch these games that we're excited to see them. And as you mentioned, Texas just brought in a tremendous recruiting class, and their classes under Tom Herman were nothing to scoff at. They should be able to play with Alabama. But if you watch Texas play football, and specifically last season, if that Texas team shows up against Alabama, they're going to get destroyed. They're going to get completely annihilated. If they don't improve, they're going to get killed in the SEC period. They're not going to hit with Alabama. They're just not going to execute with Alabama. They're not willing tacklers. They're just not tough enough to play Alabama. they're going to have a
Well,
renaissance of an off season to be able to play Alabama.
Well, I thought, Mark, that Sam Ellinger was going to be a really, really good college quarterback, and he was decent, but he wasn't what I thought he was going to be. And I thought that he was going to be, one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And he just, I mean, he was. I call him Mr. Inconsistency because you would see him in games where he looked like a really good college quarterback, and in some games where he looked completely lost. And I don't know what's happened, there, but hopefully it's a good game. I mean, I would like it to be a good game. So I appreciate you taking my call.
Think about how talented Miami's roster is. It's not an all-star like top of the line elite roster, but it's a really good top 12 to 15 roster in college football, and that was not a game. It was just, the final score didn't look ridiculous or anything, but it was not a game. Alabama crushed them.
Well, you know what it is, Mark? You know what I really think it is, and this is my personal opinion, but under Manny Diaz, and who was the guy before Manny?
Mark Richt.
Mark. Okay, yeah. I think in the Diaz era, I think that it was they didn't have the right culture there, and I think they got like Florida State did under Taggart, and it was all about swagger, and it was more about looking cool than it was playing winning football, and that is in my opinion exactly what happened to Florida State under Taggart, and I think to some extent that's what happened to Miami under Diaz, and I think Diaz is a great coordinator, but in my opinion he had no business being a head coach.
Agreed.
But all right. Well, thank you for taking my call, and it's good to hear from you again. And I'll call back in soon.
Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it. Have a good night.